And Daf Lamed Gimel Lamed Aleph. Mashbi'ani aleichem by the Mishnah. Mashbi' 5 lines in the top. Mashbi'ani aleichem and leisavayu v'tiduni sheyesh li yaplani pikadin ushumas yod v'gazel v'aveda. Someone made. Reuben says to Shimon and Levi, these Edom, I'm putting a shvu on you that you should come and say Edus for me. I Reuben have biyad Levi, I have a bunch of things. I have a pikadon, I gave something for him to watch. With Shumas Yod, I lent him money. The Gezel, and he stole something from me, and he's mechayiv to give it back. V'aveda, and he found my aveda. And the Edom responded to him, Shvuah she'ein adi milcha Edus, and they answered back, we don't know any of this Edus. You're saying he owes you 4 different things. We don't know any Edus. Ein chayav el achas. Since the shvuah that they actually made was a shvuah that they don't know anything, so it's only one shvuah, and it turns out they were lying, the Edom. So then the Edom achayiv 1 korban oliviyard. Similar din, shvuah she'ein ayayid milcha she'ein anu yoidim sheyesh l'cha biyad ploni bikadon shumas yad b'gezel v'aveda. But if they were to do it slightly differently, instead of saying we don't know anything, we don't know any edus, they say we don't know about the bikadon, we don't know about the loan, and we don't know about the gezel, we don't know about the aveda. Chayav al kol achas ve'achas. If in the shvuah the Edom listed each one of the items, then they're going to have a separate korban oliviyard for each item that they denied knowing edus about. Mashbi'ani alechem and loisavoy v'ta'idu sheyesh biyad ploni bikadon chitin usa'ayrin v'kusmin. The Edom were requested to make a shvuah about wheat and about barley and about spelt. Shvuah she'ein hayab l'cha edus, and if they answered again that we don't know any edus, ein chayav en ala achas, only chayav 1. Shvuah she'ein anu yad l'cha edus sheyesh l'cha biyad ploni chitin usa'ayrin v'kusmin. But if he listed out each item, chayav and al kol achas v'achas is chayav on each one. So this is the chiddush. I think is really the second part, right? This is l'chayra a bigger chiddush that you're going to be mechuyev al kol achas v'achas, even though ostensibly he owed the wheat and the barley and the kusman. They were all pikdoinus by him. Maybe he bought them, whatever. But even though they're all the same nature, but since they were listed separately, and the person denied on each one, he's only going to be chayiv 1. I mean, he's going to be chayiv for each one separately, in spite of the fact that they're all, let's say, a pekadon, but because he said them separately, he's going to be chayiv for each one. It's as if each one is a separate shvuah. Mashbini aleichem loisavoyu v'teiduni sheyesh biyad ploni nezek. So this is not a case where where the person who is asking for the shvuah is not saying all of these things. The Mishnah is listing a bunch of alternatives. So he says, I'm requesting of you a shvuah that I want you to come say edus that I have in the hands of this other person, nezek, this person damaged me and he has to pay that, or chatzi nezek, he has to pay chatzi nezek, tashlumi kefel, he owes me tashlumi kefel, or he owes me tashlumi arba b'chamisha, v'sha'onish ish ploni es biti, or this person was ma'anis, my daughter, and therefore he owes me 50 shkalim, upita es biti, einus mafata, either one he seduced my daughter, so he has to pay 50 shkalim. It's the same monetary penalty, same knas. And another group, sheikani b'ni, and my son hit me, meaning he hit me without causing a chabura, so therefore he owes money. V'shechavol bi chaveri, v'shehidlik es kadishi b'yom kippurim, or another alternative, that my friend hit me, or he lit a gadish, he burnt down my haystack on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is only a chiyav kares. On a chiyav kares, this mandamar holds there's no kamle b'derabmine. So the first group of cases we're going to see in the Gemara. It's going to explain this explicitly. The first group of cases were all cases where the person was chayiv moment. But most of them they're generally knossos. The second group, the last things, sheikani b'ni, these are all that one might think are kamle b'derabmine. There's no chiyav moment, and like we said, there's no shvuah edus unless there's a chiyah tvias mammon. But in the end, these are not kamei d'ramine. If his son hit him without causing chabura, he doesn't get misa. So therefore, there's going to be mammon for that. And if his friend hurt him on, caused him a wound on Yom Kippur, or he burnt down his Gadish on Yom Kippur, even though Yom Kippur is Chayiv Karas, we don't say Kamle Biramine to pata from a Chayiv Mammon. So Hari Elu Chayavim. All of these cases, whether the first group of Knossos or the second group of, or it sounds like Knossos, or the second group of possible Kamle Biramine, you're going to be Chayiv on all of them for Shavuos Eidos, because in the end they all come down to a Chayiv Mammon. Zaktamay Bailu. Mashbia Ede Knas Mao. What's it then? Now, it's just sounds like we listed a bunch of knossos, but it's going to become clear in the Gemara that this is not so simple. What's the din if someone asks aid who knows that Reuven asks aid to say that Shimon owes him a knas? Does he have to? Does the aid become, if he lies and says he doesn't owe this? Does he have to bring a carbon oil of a yard? According to Belazar of Shimon, it's not a question. The Amar Yavayu Eidim v'Ya'idu. He says that if someone owes a knas and he's maida, after he's maida, Eidim can still come and be mechayev the person for the knas. That means if Reuven stole from Shimon and he owes Shimon to pay, he owes kefil to Shimon. It's a machlokes. What happens? We all know that moed b'knas is pater. What does that mean that moed b'knas is pater? So this is a machlokes of Rabbi Elazar, Reb Shimon, and the Chacham. According to Rabbi Elazar, Reb Shimon, when we say moed b'knas pater, all that means is that Reuven, if Reuven stole from Shimon and he owes him knas, and Reuven goes and is moed to the knas, Shimon cannot be goiva. He can't demand the payment of the kefil on the basis of Reuven's admission. But if Shimon could go bring Eidim that Reuven stole, then the fact that Reuven admitted it is not going to get him off the hook. So he says, Yavayu Eidim v'Ya'idu. The Teveya can come bring Eidim, and when he brings the Eidim, then the other person is going to have to pay the knas. So the Gemara is saying, according to that mandama, clearly, Eidim that know about knas, that's mamash mammon. They're going to be able to go. The fact that the nitva, the person who owes the knas, can be moida is irrelevant. The Eidim will come. They're going to take money based on their Eidus, so that's certainly mammon. The question is according to the Rabban, the Amri, moida b'knas v'ach kabo Eidim potter. They say no, that this din that moida b'knas is potter is a permanent ptur, and even if Eidim will come later on and testify that the knas is owed, it's not going to change the fact that the person who owes the money is off the hook because he was moida. So then it makes sense. You can understand how this question will only be a question according to the Rabbanan. Are you really in the what we're talking about where the Eidim, he's going to ask the Eidim to testify about a knas, the person who's owed the knas. So the Eidim said we don't know anything. So he says, and then they admit it. So he says, listen, you cost me money because I could have collected the knas. They say no, because we don't know what's going to happen. Maybe the person who's coming to bring the knas, before we can testify, he's going to be maida, and then our Eidus will be irrelevant, because once he's maida, he's pater according to the Rabban. So that's the question. Do we say that based on their testimony, would money actually have been collected or not, if the person who owes the knas can get out of it by being maida? Who do they hold like in a second machlokes or belazar of Shimon that we had mentioned before? We had said before, we had a machlokes A second machlokes of Elazar and Shimon Rabbanan, whether Davar Garim Lamaman is Kamaman Dami. We said that in the context of when you're coming to say Shavuos Ha'edus on someone, let's say we said for example, a Saita. Saita was an example of Davar Garim Lamaman. So Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon says that Davar Garim Lamaman is Kamaman Dami. If the Rabbanan over here, if the Rabbanan over here who are saying Moed Knas v'ach kavod and Potter, so we're saying that's the ones that are having the question. But according to Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon, they anyway say Davar Garim Lamaman is Kamaman Dami. So if you're going to cause this person to pay Knas, if the Adis would come prior to this person having a chance to be Maida, so he's going to miss out on his chance to be Maida. So they were big Garim Mama. Ella Karabanan the Hachad Ami Davar Garim Lamam Lavkadami. The question is Davar Garim Lamam is Lavkamam. My Kivin du Lumoida Mifter Lav Mamoinaka Kafale. Do we say since if the Nitva, the person who owes the Knas, would be Maida before the Edom come, then there would be no Mammon, so it's not Kfiris Mammon, and therefore he's Pata Idilma. Hashnami Leida. Or do we say in the meantime he hasn't been Maida? You're coming to ask them to say Edis, so they can't get themselves off the hook by saying if he's going to be Maida, then it's not going to cause anything. So you could be Gairim Lamaman, but we don't know. That was what we said. When we said Davar Gairim Lamaman, it doesn't mean like a grumble, you're causing money. It means that you're possibly causing money. If you're saying Davar Gairim Lamaman is Lava minus, then we have a question of this: is this going to be a Davar Gairim Lamaman? Right now, in the meantime, you are causing him to pay, but there's a possibility he'll get out of it by being Mike. So Toshma. Now we're going to go back to the question. So what is the answer of this question of whether someone who says Adis, who knows Adis about a Knas and declines to testify, he makes a shvua not to testify, is that a shvuas Adis? Toshma. What about our Mishnah? Right, our Mishnah on the surface of it was clearly talking about a list of cases of knasos, and we said at the end you're going to be chayiv. Seems a very clear raya that a shvuas edus on knas is going to be chayiv karbanei l'v'yored. V'chatzi nezek knaso chatzi nezek. Right, you pay chatzi nezek if someone has a shar tam, a shar that's not a muad. Now his shar committed the damage. So if he's only paying half damages, that's clearly not compensation. L'chayr it's knasu. So like tomorrow, no, command am a palganiska mamayna. We're going to command am that palganiska mamayna. That which you pay chatzi nezek when your shar tam does damage. It's a generosity that the Torah did. Really, you should have watched your shar more carefully, and you should have been mechuyev the whole thing. But since it never did this before, the Torah let you off on half. But the half that you do pay is compensation. It's not a penalty. So according to that mandam, it's good. What are you going to say according to the other mandam who says that really you shouldn't have had to pay anything by chatzi nezek? And the Torah just imposed a penalty, a knas of chatzi nezek. So we have a raya, the chatzi nezek, that knas you do pay. It is going to be a shvuas edus. So we're not talking about this, the typical chatzi nezek that you pay when you shar tam damages, but rather when you shar damages by kicking pebbles, which the hilchos gemira lo adabamainu, the halacha l'maisha misina that you pay chatzi nezek on tzuris, and that's a compensation. It's not a part of the hilchos gemira law. Part of the halacha l'maisha misina is that it's a din of mamonus. It's not a din of knas. So there's no raya from the first case of our Mishnah. We said chatzi nezek. Toshma tashumi kefel mishum karna. Toshma tashumi kefel. What about tashumi kefel? You pay double. Double clearly is a knas. So we're no mishum karna. When we say kefel, we're referring to as the keren, not the kefel. It means even though we say we're talking about a case of kefel, someone has to pay kefel, but the shvuas edus is going to be because within the kefel there's also keren, right? If someone pays double, the first, he's paying double. So, but the first payment, the first half of the payment is Karen, and Karen is Mammon.
So the fact that there is a kefil that's...
But it doesn't get, we're talking about whether someone who refused to say Edis, he's made a shvur that he doesn't know Edis, about, let's say, someone who owes kefil. So it's true that maybe for the knas part, the kefil part, his refusal to swear won't be mechayiv and shvur se'edis, won't be deemed a shvur se'edis, but the Karen part will be. It includes it within it. The same thing, Tashlumi Dal V'Hei is also clearly a knas. Again, Mishum Karna. The shvur se'edis is because of the Karen. Sha'an is plain Yopita as biti. What about the case where someone said that this person was honest, my daughter, and he was mafata her? There's also a moment element of Einis mafata in addition to the 50 shekel. The man who was ma'anis mafata someone's daughter has to pay him, or has to pay the girl if she's above bas mitzvah. He has to pay her for the embarrassment and bagam that she endures, and that's mum, and that's not. That's on top of the 50 shekel, and that's mums. So the Gemara, my kamashman kulam amaynahu. Gemara says, what are you telling me? If you're saying all these cases are really because of the moment, so what are you telling me that you chayiv a shvur se'edis, that they're shvur se'edis, and you're going to have to bring carbon oil on them? So the Gemara reisha chada kamashmal and sefer chada kamashmal. The reisha is really all being brought. There's one chiddush in it, and the other cases are just brought because they're similar to it. Reisha chada kamashmal and the chatzi nezik troiris moinu. The first thing, the first part of the whole first list of all the knosses is all just because we say chatzi nezik troiris, and once we say chatzi nezik troiris, we also say kefel and dal v'hei and ayin sumafata, which are other examples of knas that contain with that moment. So we say once we're saying chatzi nezik, which includes troiris, which is a chiddush, so we say these other things. Sefer chada kamashman. What's the sefer? That means the last three cases. We say that someone who, if he says, I want you to say Edis, that Pliny burnt my Gadish on Yom Kippur, which one might say that he's going to be potter from Mammon because he's a Kamle B'dur. So that's what the Chiddush is, that we don't say like Rabbi Choni ben Akna, the Tanya ben Choni ben Akna, Yom Kippurim Shabbos al Tashlumim. He said if someone would burn a person's haystack on Shabbos, he wouldn't have to pay for the haystack. He was chayiv misa or doing it on Shabbos. Rabbi Choni ben Akna says the same din on Yom Kippur. He says I think he says that you get misa also for Yom Kippur. Is that what he says? No, he says even though it's only karas, you're still going to be say kamle b'derabim. It doesn't say it's chayiv misa. They say Shabbos tashlum, mas Shabbos, just like Shabbos you're potter from tashlum because there's a chayiv misa. Yom Kippur, even though it's only a chayiv karas, Rabbi Choni ben Akna holds that you're not going to be chayiv mamres because of kamle b'derabim. Okay, so we're back to our original question. We don't have a raya from our Mishnah about our question about whether someone who says, the client who refused to say Edis about Knas, whether he's Chayiv, Carbon or Tashma. If you're trying to get someone to say Edis that this man, who my former son-in-law, was married to my daughter, and when after the Kedushin, after the Nisuin, he says, and she was mezana when she was a mekudeshes. So the din is that he has to pay 100 shekel, meya kasef, and you try to get Adam to come say that this had happened, that was found in a different bezdin, and I want you to testify that this guy owes the 100 kasef to me. Chayav, he's chayav. But if the person that you're trying to get to pay it is ma'idim haidim mipiatzmai, then he'll be potter. So l'chayru we see that even though this is clearly a knas, we're saying that he's going to be chayiv, even though it's a knas. So Gemara Hamani Rebbe Elazar Shimni Da'amar Yavayu Aidim Ve'Yidu. We're going according this. No, our whole question was just according to the Rabbanan. But according to Rav Shimon, who says that Adam could come and testify even after he's Maida, that then certainly it's going to be Mammon. Knas, a Chiv Knas, is also a Chiv Mammon. There's no way out by being Maida. That you could say it's only a Davar Garem L'mayrim. In fact, how can you say it's going to be Rav Shimon? We said if he's Maida Me'atzmai, it's Potter. That makes it sound like that even if Adam will come, he's going to be Potter. Etein l'Rabbanan. So the Chayra, that part sounds like the Rabbanan that you're saying. Hadei is Potter, that if he even if he comes and is Maida afterwards, his Torah he's still gonna be Potter. So Kula Rabbi Lazar Rav Shimoni. Loi mishkachas la, loi mishkachas la. The Potter ela hecha deleka edem klau v'hoida me'atzmai. When it's said that hoida me'atzmai is Potter, it just means that if there's no edem and he's Maida, then he's going to be Potter. But certainly, if Adam would come afterwards, we would say like the Rabbanon, like Rabbi Lazar of Shimon, that Yavayu Adam ve'yiduni, that they could come overturn it. So l'chayra, we don't necessarily have a raya. This is only according to the Lazar of Shimon, but our question was in the Rabbanon because it is talking to Lazar of Shimon, and when it says Mipi Atzma is Potter, it just means that as long as there's no Adam, he's going to be Potter, which Lazar of Shimon certainly agrees. Dr. Mishnah. Mashbi'ani alechem lo'isavoyu v'ta'idu shani koyin shani levi. He tries to put a shvua on an aid. He says, I want you to come testify that I am a koyin or that I'm a levi. It's important to me. I want to get aliyas. I want to duchen. And the aid says, I'm not interested. I don't know any aidis. And it turns out that he was lying. Or she'eni ben grusha v'she'eni ben chalutza is another way of saying that I'm not a ben grusha ben chalutza would pass on me from the kahuna. Or she'ish pliny kayin, not about myself, about a different person. I want you to come say that this other person is a kayin. She'ish pliny levi, this other person is a levi. She'eni ben grusha, she'eni ben chalutza, this other person is a kayin because he's not a ben grusha ben chalutza. It's another way of coming to the same thing. He's trying to get an aid to say this about the kohanic status of a different person rather than about himself. But he's not saying anything that has to do with mammon. Sha'an ish pliny as bitoi, upita as bitoi, or he says that the Ruvain was Ma'anas Shimon's daughter, or he was Mafata Shimon's daughter. So he's not asking the aid to say anything about himself. He's asking to say about a third party, that this person owes money to a third party. Shechav will be b'ni, or, and now we're moving on to a different set of cases. He says, my son gave me a wound. Now, if his son gave him a wound, he's chayav misa, and therefore he's going to be potter for any moment because of kamlev deravine. Shechav will be chaveri v'shedet kadishi b'shabbos, or he says about, I want you to say edus that this person damaged me, or he damaged my property, he caused me a wound, or he burnt my property on Shabbos, so he's going to chayiv misa for that, and again he's going to be potter from mamnas kamlev deramne. Harei paturin. These are all potters. So again, we have three different types of things that you potter on the Mishnah. The first group is things that are not relevant to money, about whether I'm a kain or not a kain. The second group are things that are not relevant to me. I'm asking you to say this about a third party, and the last group are things that are potter because it's kamlev deramne. There's no mammon involved because of that. There's one problem with the way I just set it up. So time of ish pliny kind ish pliny levi. In the second group, we said I asked the aid to say edus about a third party that he's a kain, that he's a levi. If the reason is that he's potter is because he's a third party, why are we saying the case where he's saying ish pliny ish levi, which is anyway potter? The Gemara says time of ish pliny kain ish pliny levi. It sounds like the only reason why you potter is because you asked the aid to say about a third party and edus that doesn't involve mammon. A money pliny we had pliny chayavin. It sounds like, but if we're to be talking about money, it's only because I asked to say edus about a third party legabi something that doesn't impact mammon. But if it was mammon about the third party, then you would be chayav. Haktani seifa, but we learn in the later Mishnah ad sheyishmu mipiai taveya. The chiyuv of Shavuos, this is only where you hear where the person who wants the money asks about himself. He says, I want you to say this. But if a third party asks you to say the Shavuot, you're not chayiv. So what does our Mishnah say when it's talking about where a third party, we asking for edus about a third party, the case where you ask the third party to testify about whether he's a Kayin or whether he's a Levi, which in itself, even if you were saying about yourself, you would be patal l'chayiv. Amar Shmuel bebava harsha. Shmuel says no. Even though the mashmoyis over here is it's only because let's say Reuven came and said, testify about Shimon, whether Shimon is a Levi or Shimon is a Kayin. We're talking about where Shimon had given Reuven a harsha, he'd given him a power of attorney to advocate on his behalf. He said, you're my designated person, and when we say harsha, we had harsha before, it's where you give in to the other person, we say, you are now the owner of this thing. In case of a Kayin Levi, it's not really possible. But in the case of Mamonis, which is what's implied in the Mishnah, that if it was Mamonis, he would be Chai. We're talking about where Reuven had been given by Shimon the rights to collect that money on his own behalf and then give it back to him. It's not, we don't allow writing harshas on metaltalin because it looks like it's a lie. You're writing over to someone. Reuven is writing to Shimon that this vase that Levi is holding belongs to him, that he could go get it from Levi. In the meantime, it's by Levi. So you can't. How can you write a document giving over something that you don't have? So metaltalin, we don't allow. We allow it for karka, because karka and gzela, so you can write it over wherever it is. But on metaltalin, we don't allow because it's mechzik shikra. So where it says that which we don't allow writing over a power of attorney, where you give over someone a chavetz that's in someone else's hands, that's only where the other person is already denying it. Whereas you already asked him for it and he said no. Avaloi kafre, but if you have every expectation that when your attorney goes with his power of attorney to collect the object, he's going to give it over willingly, kasavin, and you could write it. But we had this case, I don't remember exactly what it was, where one Amira sent another Amira to go collect something from far away, and he gave him a harsha. And when he came back, he walked out halfway to the outskirts of the city to greet him, because they were able to avoid some kind of problem by writing a harsha. So you know that there is such a thing as writing a harsha, but it can't be done where the person is actively denying it, because then it appears mechzik shekra. Tanravan. Now we're going to get to the main topic that we're finally asking. Where do we know what has been the main issue legabi Shavuos ha'edus, that we say you bring carbon oil, that we said it's only when there's a tvias mammon, when you're asking for money. Like we just said, if you're just asking if you're Kayin and Levi, that's not going to be, you're not going to be chayiv a carbon oil for Shavuos ha'edus. It has to be the asking a person to say edus on mammon, on something that could actually produce money. So where does this come from? Where do we know that's from? We're going to say a number of different possibilities. It says it says oy twice. Just say who aid oyra v'yada. What does it have to say? Oyada. Twice. And also that's by Shavuos ha'edus, and it says Shavuos ha'pikadon, where someone denies that he's holding someone else's object. You have to make a shvu on that. It says also oy. It says it says two times oy. Shavuos ha'pikadon by its nature is only. That's what Shavuos Kadin is. Someone saying, you owe me a Kadin, and the guy makes a Shvuah that he doesn't owe it. That's only talking about whether he's asking for money. That's the definition of a Shavuos HaPikadon. So just like a Shavuos HaPikadon is only by where he's asking for money, the Shavuos HaEdus is also only when he's asking for an Edus that will impact money. Why do you learn out from the ayin where it says ayin twice by Shavuos HaPikadon? What about it says by Vayecheach shein ayin ubedam shaloi betvias mammon. It says Agabi Aretzech in Besinia Fenu Oy Hishlachav Vitzdia V'Yamis Oy Be'eva Yiko. So it says Oy Hishlach Oy Be'eva. When someone kills someone, either he does it by trapping him or with hatred. So it says Oy over there twice. So it says Oy twice. Madam Shaloi B'Tfias Mammon Aretzech. He gets killed. He's not asking for money. So why do we learn out from Pikad and why do we learn out from Aretzech? Don and Oyin She'eshin Mon Shvua May Oyin She'eshin Mon Shvua. No, we should learn out Mishvua Sabikadim, which is a Shvua, to Shvua Sa'edis, which is another Shvua. There's no Shvua over there. In fact, the Mara Ayin this site, what about it says Ay by a site Avar alav ruach kina v'kinas ishta v'hi nitma Ay avar alav ruach kina v'kinas ishta v'hi lo nitma so Ay yisha shatav alav ruach kina. It says again there over there twice Ay. Shein Ayin v'yeshimon Shvua. There is a shvua by the shvua say she has to make a shvua and she says the amru amen, right, in the end of this in the end of the parasha there the kohen gives her a shvua and she has to agree to the shvua and there's no mammon involved by a site. So the Gemara done an ayin sheishim on shvua of any mon kohen may ayin sheishim on shvua of any mon kohen al yichicha in the retzech sheini mon shvua al yichicha ayin the site sheishim on shvua. That means the shvua by Yisaita is less similar to the shvua of a shvua sa'edis and a shvua hapikadan, because the shvua of the saita is administered by a kain. It's clearly a different category of shvua from the shvua sa'edis and the shvua hapikadan, which are both monetary shvuas. You're being asked to make a shvua outside of a formal process, a ritual process from a kain. Over there, it has to be given. That has to be administered by a kain. These are just being requested by a party. So we don't compare from the ayin of Retzech, because that's no shvua at all. We don't compare to the ayin of Saita because that's only with a kain. So therefore, what's left is the ayin. The two times it says ay by pikadon will tell you that the two times it says ay by shvua sa'edis is only talking about where the shvua sa'edis is for mammon.
Svartis, the kain business.
Like I said, because it's a different category of shvua. It's a shvua that's being administered by a kain, as opposed to over here we're talking about purely monetary shuas, where two parties, one person's asking for something, and the guy doesn't want to make. He's asking him to say edus, and he doesn't want to swear. He doesn't want to say the edus, or he's asking someone to pay money to give him.
Yeah, but I get it. No shua, club. I get it.
Okay, right. So the shua is easy. This is a little more subtle, but you can hear the difference.
Shua should make a difference.
It's not just administering the shua; it's being he's being mashpia. You know, if you look at the parsha, there's a whole ritual, right? And he has to be mashpia, and then she agrees to shua, then he gives her the mei saita. So it's a much more it's a more bein adam. I would say even like this, it's a more bein adam l'makom situation. Well, this is much more bein adam. It's a purely bein adam l'chavera. It's a purely momnus thing. I'm just speculating because they don't say anything like to explain what the svar is, why it should be different. Okay, so that's his shot. It says in the pasuk of Shua Sa'edith, it says when he's going to do one of these things, then he's going to admit it. We use the lashon of me'ela. So there are those of these that you chayiv, and there are those of these that you potter. Okay, it said which types of Shua Sa'edith you chayiv and which ones are you potter? Tavayu mammon chayiv, davar achar potter. If you ask for something that's mammon, so he learns that from a pasuk. It's basically a miyat of the pasuk that you're not going to be chayiv in every case where you ask someone to make a shvua sa'edis. So what are we excluding? We're excluding something that's not a tvias mammon. We're only including something that's a tvias mammon. The Gemara is going to ask on that later on more. We're going to explain all these pshat. He says a third pshat, and where we learn out shvua sa'edis has to be bedafka a tvias mammon. Who aid ayra ayada? it says he's an aid, or he saw, or he knows. It says oyra oyada. So it means oyra oyada. So it means he either saw or he knew. Hakas medaba. So what is going to be? How do you have Riyah below Yediyah and Yediyah below Riyah? What kind of Edus has Riyah without Yediyah and Yediyah without Riyah? Riyah Yediyah Ketzad, where he sees it without knowing. Mana manisilach, bipnei pleni pleni. If Reuven says to Shimon, "I lent you money in front of Levi and Yehuda," Yavayu pleni pleni v'yidi, and then Shimon answers back to Reuven, "Let Levi and Yehuda come and testify that they saw you hand over the money to me, then I'll pay." Zui Riyah B'la Yediyah. Levi and Yehuda can come testify that they saw Reuben handing Shimon money. They don't have to testify that they have any idea what the content of what was behind that handing over of money. Because Shimon has said, if they come and testify that you handed over money to me, so that enabled them to say such a edus. So that's a case of a tvias mammon, where you have a re'iyah below yediyah. What about yediyah below re'iyah? How could you have a yediyah below re'iyah where they know about it without seeing? Ketzad mana haydisili b'pnei pleni. If Reuben says to Shimon, "You admitted that you owe money to me," in front of Levi and Yehuda, upleni b'pnei pleni yavayu pleni v'yidu, and Shimon says, "Let Levi Yehuda come and testify that you admitted in front of them that I admitted in front of them that I owe you money." Even though these Edom have no idea about the original loan, they weren't there when the loan was originally made, but they can still testify that they heard the admission. Reb Shimon, okay, so that's the third pshat. Fourth pshat, Reb Shimon. So therefore, we're saying that it has to be a type of Eda of Tfias Mam, and that's the only type of Edus that has a Yediyah B'lei Riyah, Riyah B'lei Yediyah, which Gemara is going to ask. Try to bring other examples so you can have it in non-Mamnus cases. Shimon says, it says Yechayev over here, and you also Chayev by Shavuos Apikadin. He says without the oy, like Rabbi Eliezer had said, he just says it's a memotzinu, just like we find by Shavuos Apikadin, that Yechayev Shavuos Eidus, it's only by Tfias Mammon, so too by Shavuos Eidus. But in addition to the fact that it's a memotzinu kavachaymer, it could be a kavachaymer. Mapi kansha asa by noshim kanoshim kroivim grechaykim psum kashem b'chayev al kol achas v'achas. Just like we say, first of all, that a Shavuos Apikadin, there's no nafkamina of whether the person is a kosher aid. It's nothing to do with aid. It's Shavuos Apikadin, and even so, the Yechayev Shavuos Apikadin. And Yechayev kol achas b'fnei bezin shloi b'fnei bezin. We had said in the previous Mishnah that if a person is kaifer outside of bezin, he could be mechuyev on each individual thing that he was kaifer. Each time he's kaifer. But if he says it 5 times in bezin, he's going to be pater, like we said, because once he was kaifer the first time, it's already an edus, and he can't be chayzer on his edus. And so Pikadin has all these advantages that it doesn't make a difference. Even if he's in Bezin, he can mechayev on each achas v'achas, and it doesn't make a difference who testifies. And even so, ein of darbella b'tfias mam. And edus shaloyasa by nashim kanashim kavrichaykim psum kshem. There's stricter rules by edus. You have to have a kosher eid. Ve'ein chayev ela achas. And you el b'fnei Bezin. But you only chayev once if you were moida 5 times in Bezin, kaifer 5 times in Bezin. You should also certainly by Shavuos Eid should only be chayav by Tfias Mammon, just like Pikadin. First, like tomorrow, no. First of all, Lagabi Shavuos Pikadin that we don't allow mushba mipiacherim by Shavuos Pikadin. The whole din of Shavuos piacherim, no, a regular Shavuos is only piatzah. The person testifies himself. We can't have another put on you a Shavuos like we have by Shavuos Eidus. Umezid kashaygig. In addition, by Shavuos, we don't have a din that you only chayev a Shavuos because you only bring a carbon kashaygig, not by mezid. Also by muzbek nishma umezid kashaygig. You're going to be has both of these milas. Taman loima sechtach sechta l'gzeir shava. He says so. Ultimately, Rav Shimon says it says Sechte by Shavuos Eidos, and it says Sechte by Shavuos Apikadon. Instead of the Oyin, we say a different Xer Shavuos, Sechte. Never can Sechte, never on Sechte. Malam name Daber Latvias Mom, not can name Daber Ella Betvias Mammon. We'll stop over here tomorrow. We're going to go through a series of questions on all of these different rayas, or the different sources for the din that you only have a Shavuos Eidos on Tvias Mammon. Shkayach.